Hello guys, it's Sean here doing another Beyblade ranking. So, this time I'm going to rank every single Beyblade X that came out in 2024. No remakes will be counted here, that will be much further down the line. Also, I'm not counting any of the Hasbro variants. I kind of view them a little bit differently, so I'm opting to just keep them out. So, again, those will be later down the line, probably in a couple of years, but yeah. These are just the most basic, mainline bays I could think of for 2024. There's 20 of them, so I'll go ahead and rank all of them, and then we'll be caught up with the rankings until next year when 2025 releases are done. Also, one more side note, this isn't based on any performance or whatever else. These are just my own opinions, really. Doesn't have to really relate to anything in particular, just what do I think about them. So anyways, let's go and get into the list. Number 20, Shinobi Shadow. This is my least favorite Blade that came out last year. The blade actually does look really, really good, but it's also stupidly light, and while I'm not taking competitive into account, it still just annoys me that they made like a really nice, interesting defense blade, you know, the whole pairing idea, then it made it really light for no reason. Also, 180 doesn't really make sense at all here. Metal Needle, terrible part. You know, can damage stadiums. I also don't like the color competency of Metal Needle and like the lime green they use. I think it needs to be more muted to work better with this purple. Or just get rid of the whole thing about, you know, bits having to relate to types and just make this like purple or something. But anyway, overall, this blade isn't actually terrible. Again, the blade looks great. It's just that I hate the parts. I don't like the color choices on the parts either. This 180 is okay, but still. The parts here really kill this blade for me. But yeah. And obviously the weight on the blade is kind of annoying as well. Number 19, Crimson Garuda. I don't really care for this blade, it just exists. The blade, it just looks very okay. 470 works. Transpoint, it's just a height change, which I don't really care much about. I guess it was an idea, so it does something, which is, I guess, cool. But also, again, the parts are just really boring here. I don't think there's any like standout design stuff here. November is a pretty good month for Beyblade, and I feel like this page just kind of got forgotten about because, I mean, you had Samurai Saber, the customized set, what is this thing doing? It really, to me, just exists to kind of fill that, you know, void of a Dronzer reference, and that's really about all this Bey does. Other than that, I couldn't care less about it. Alright, now it's time to piss some people off. Number 18, Cobalt Dragoon. I don't really care for this Bey. I don't know how people feel about this Bey in general. Maybe people like it, maybe they don't. I don't know, I just assume that people like this one. But, the blade design is pretty solid. It's just nothing crazy. Also, the fact that Cobalt Drake was painted and this wasn't, I feel like it's kind of frustrating. I think Impact gets away with it, but this one, I think it needed paint to actually look good. It just looks okay. It looks fine. The only notable thing about this Bey is that it's left spin. 260 exists. Cyclone exists. They're both fine. This whole Bey to me is just fine. No blue paint is really annoying. I think this Bey could have looked a lot better in that case and would have been much higher, but without it, I don't really care about it. And the only thing it has going forward is that it's left spin, which I don't really care all that much about comparatively, so yeah, it doesn't really rank very highly to me. Number 17, Phoenix Rudder. Phoenix Rudder is a weird case because this one is painted. I actually think that the blade design here looks really cool. The problem is this gear chip is absolutely atrocious looking. I think it's the worst gear chip in all of Beyblade X. I don't know what they were cooking here. Aside from that, yeah, the paint, while it does look good, it's just, that gear chip is so ugly. The blade also doesn't do anything really interesting. 970 Glide. Sure. I just don't find this Bey overly interesting. I think for a UX Phoenix they needed to do a lot more here and they just didn't, and it could have been a little bit higher if this gear chip actually looked good. If it had like a Phoenix Feather type of gear chip, I think this would have been a lot higher, but it doesn't, and I think it looks pretty bad. So not doing anything interesting plus having an ugly gear chip I think is enough to lower this thing pretty heavily. Number 16, Sphinx Scowl. Sphinx Scowl just exists. The blade is fine, 980, sure, Gear Needle, I guess. But I like the color scheme of this thing. I like the kind of brown slash yellowish thing. I like kind of the teal color scheme. I think it's just a good color scheme. Sphinx motif is cool, I guess, too. But yeah, overall, It's just a decent bay with a really nice color scheme, and that is a trend for a couple other bays around this part of the list, but yeah, I mean, it just works fine enough. Aside from that, yeah, it's a pretty basic bay. Number 15, Unicorn Sting. Same deal. The blade is fine. I don't care about the two-sided thing or whatever. It's like pretty similar regardless. Sure. 560, not ideal, but I think it's still okay. And then gear point, sure, but I think the color scheme of this thing just looks great, like the gear chip. You know, kind of like this, you know, sky blue, got some magenta, you know, white. I think it overall looks really, really nice. The bay itself is just kind of alright, but yeah, again, really, really nice color scheme on this one. Number 14, Hell's Hammer. So Hell's Hammer, this is just a strange bay. Hex is interesting, 370 works, Hell's Hammer. I don't know. This bay, I could have put it like kinda higher or lower. It was a really weird decision. I think it looks cool. I like the gear chip design. I just like the overall, like, top-down look of this thing quite a bit. The blade from the side's decent. I think the parts are sensible. Hex is interesting, so I figure it's interesting enough to where I could put it above some of the other bays where I just kind of like the color design of, but not quite interesting enough to put it against some of the other bays, so I just put it here. It's close enough to a reasonable spot, I'd say. Number 13, Ghost Circle. Ghost Circle is up here purely because of its design. I like the round circle. I think 080 works well. Gear ball, sure. The color design on this thing, though, you got like kind of this weird, like very bright, almost like a lavender, like in this pearlescent color here, and you know, magenta, darker purple, orange. I just like the color scheme. I think it's a cool motif. It looks cool. The bay is very boring, doesn't do a whole lot, so I can't reasonably put it much higher. But I still just like how this bay looks enough to where I gotta put it higher than I should, maybe. Number 12, Tyranno Beat. This blade just looks cool. 470 works fine. Quake, I always like how chaotic Quake, you know, type things are, so I mainly like this bay just because, yeah, it's really interesting. It's chaotic. I always like these bays. It looks cool. I like the kind of red, brown, like a light blue. It looks crazy. I don't know. It does look cool. Maybe not as cool as some of the other bays, but it's still cool. But it has a better idea than some of the previous ones, which is why I'm putting it above them. Number 11, Impact Drake. This is a weird case because, unlike Cobalt Dragoon, I'm not mad about this being unpainted. I mean, it would have been cool, but whatever. I think the gear chip looks good. I like the rubber on this thing. This blade is one of the best looking blades in Beyblade X. You know, also with the rubber, it is one of the more unique bays, so that's cool. A problem, 960 low rush. Why? Now the blue, the black, it looks good. I like how this bay looks. If you just look at it without any other context, it looks really good. I just think these are really boring parts of Impact Drake. 960, whatever, low rush, it doesn't. It's rush but shorter. It's not like, you know, low flat or high needle where they're a bit more interesting. They do a little bit more. They're not the exact same. This one is just rush but shorter, so the parts of this thing are just so boring that I refuse to put this any higher, and it does finish off the bottom half of this list. Number 10, Black Shell. Black Shell is weird. This blade looks cool, definitely Drasil inspired. I like the gear chip sticker a lot. 460, sensible. Dot, pretty solid. I think the just overall vibe of this bay, I like it a lot. I also like, you know, the black, the dark green. Also, Drasil was my favorite bucket and shoot bay, well, of the main four motifs, so I'm definitely a bit biased toward this one. I think it just has a great color scheme, looks cool. So, yeah, I'll let it scrape in a 10th, even though maybe it's a little rated for this list, but it's fine. Number 9, Leon Crest. So Leon Crest, not my favorite looking bay, at least from a top-down view, but it's a very, you know, thick defense type. You got this like wall-like thing. 760 pairs well with that. Gear needle, not my favorite bit, but here's the thing. You know, Leon Claw had point, kind of had that counter-attack thing going. I think if you're going to reuse it, I think Gear Needle is at least sensible in that regard to kind of reference that. And again, this base is such a wall, I feel like it's pretty striking. in that way, so I kind of do like this thing. It's not my favorite Bay of all time. Still a bit, you know, questionable on how they handle this evolution, or quote-unquote evolution, but I like it well enough. And again, just looking at this from a side profile, I think it's just kind of interesting, and I like it because of that. Number 8, Weiss Tiger. Weiss Tiger is another weird one because the whole thing about this bay is that it uses like all 3 types, and you got like attack, stamina, defense, and the blade, which not really, but okay. 360, sensible enough. Unite also has this whole thing about like the center part being defense, you know, everything got like attack, stamina for some reason, but it really just feels like a subdued attack type, or I guess like balance type if you want to call it that, but the stamina defense stuff here I don't think is as prevalent as they would make it, you know, sound, but sure, it's interesting enough. It's like the bare minimum. The reason that this thing is so high though is because of the design. Gear chip's really cool. I just like how the metal is formed. I like the white plastic. I like the color scheme a lot. I like monochrome color schemes a lot. And you got this kind of red here. Not even red, it's like almost like a maroon. But I think having kind of a, you know, darker color, you know, it's not as vibrant, kind of desaturated almost, I think is good to pair with the rest of this bay being monochrome. And also I guess you get like the orange here, which is cool, but yeah. The design definitely carries this thing for me, but I don't care. It's such a good design. Number 7, Wizard Rod. Wizard Rod is another interesting one. This blade looks really cool. I like how big the blade is on this one. Hopefully it doesn't become a mainstay, but just for a one-off bay, it's really cool. 570 pairs with this bay sensibly. Disc ball. I think disc ball looks really cool, and yeah, I think Wizard Rod is just cool. Has kind of a bunch of, I guess, good stamina things going for it. Nothing insane, you know, off the bat, but it just has so many things that make it cool, you know, collectively. And I think that's good. And I obviously this thing's like an absolute menace competitively, but again, I'm just taking into account the, well, my own opinions, so, you know, I still like this thing regardless, but yeah, I don't know. Also, this gear chip sticker is really nice, so definitely am a fan of Wizard Rod. Number 6, Silver Wolf. I'm not the biggest fan of this gear chip sticker, but I think the blade overall looks cool. I think 380 works well. I think Freeball is a pretty cool part. I like the overall color scheme, you know, like the black, yellow, blue, some silver. I think it looks cool. But here's the thing, yeah, a free spinning piece here on the blade, and having a proper gimmick, a moving part on the blade, that automatically puts this above most other things, because Beyblade X, in my opinion, has been very boring. So any sign of a moving part on a blade is going to make it, you know, a lot higher than it should be, but that's fine. So this thing is in 6th because, yeah, 6th because it has a moving part, but that's it. It's a solid bait, it's still ranked, you know, decently, but without this it'd be probably around like 12th or so, but yeah, with it, jumps up to 6th. Number 5, Samurai Saber, another kind of similar one. I think this blade looks really nice. I like the purple and green a lot. 270 works well enough. Levels are a really interesting bit, I would say. This bay is definitely a lot more interesting than Silver Wolf, in my opinion. You know, I don't like the gimmick as much, like the metal blades just kind of move out. It's fine. I guess that's moving metal parts, that's cool, but not as interesting. But again, the design I think does make up for it, especially the color scheme. I am a big fan of like the darker purple, lighter green. I think it looks really good. Also some pink on the gear chip sticker. Overall, just another really nice bay. And again, having a gimmick, even how I like it a little bit less than Silver Wolves, I think still warrants, you know, getting a high spot, because it is still a moving part on the blade. Number 4, Nightmail. You might have already heard the sound of it, but yeah. Nightmail has a solid design, like the green here. I kind of wish this was translucent, but whatever. The metal balls, though, again, moving parts on the blade, that is great. 385 first ratchet of this type. Really cool. Bounce spike is awkward, but it is interesting, so I guess that's something. I do just find this bay to be very interesting. Again, got some stuff going, has an actual gimmick. The bay looks kind of awkward, though. Like, I don't hate it. It's like a solid design. It's just kind of awkward. But again, I think the gimmicks and the stuff this thing has going on with it just to make it as high as it is, because this bay is probably the most unique bay in Beyblade X so far, because again, you get the metal balls. I mean, this is the first ever ratchet like this. The bit is arguably the most gimmicky bit, I would say, maybe, but you know, overall, a really, really interesting bay, which is why it is above the other two bays with moving parts in the blade. And I mean, Impact Rate does have a gimmick, but it's not as interesting. Rubber, just, you know, whatever, but still. I mean, it's cool, but yeah, this is more interesting to me, so definitely am a fan of Nightmail. Number 3, Aero Pegasus. So Aero Pegasus does absolutely nothing. I mean, it's good competitively, but again, the blade here got like holes here, 2 different metal paint colors, whatever. 370 pairs nicely, Excel, they're not new parts, but sure. Yeah, this bay doesn't do a whole lot in the sense of being interesting, but it is the best looking bay, I would say, in Beyblade X so far. So because of that, I know I was kind of harsh on some of the aesthetic things earlier, just being like, you know, they're low because of that, but this thing I think is just so good that I don't really care, and it's gonna be third, because you know what? In my opinion, this is the best looking bay in Beyblade X so far, so yeah. Number 2, Drawn Buster. Drawn Buster, it's basically just Beyblade X Excalibur. Yeah, this blade looks amazing because of that. 160 pairs properly. Excel, okay, so here's the thing with Excel. Having the kind of crazier gears here to hit, you know, faster on the extreme line. The extreme line, I think, inherently has this kind of big hit, you know, to it. This design kind of promotes that same thing of one single contact point to give a big hit. Combine both, you got Drawn Buster. Perfect, yeah. This is a really good design, although it doesn't like to stay up properly all the time, but yeah. The design's really good, but I think the fact they had a really good concept here doesn't necessarily need to be UX, but I think they did use the prongs very well here, and overall, I think it is just a great bay. Great concept, great design, hard to dislike this one. Number 1, Whale Wave. I feel like, conceptually speaking, this easily could have been, and probably should have been UX, if something like Drawn Buster's UX, but I like the blade design here. It reminds me a lot of Neptune, except 5-sided. I just like the molding on the metal here. I like the down smash idea, how crazy it is on the side profile. Nice gear strip design, reminds me a little bit of Ketos, and color design on this thing is really nice as well. 580 pairs well with this. Also, this bay, with the down smash, you know, makes sense to be taller and elevate. Can kind of raise up on the extreme line a little bit, so when it, you know, extreme dashes has a little bit of an angle downwards to further go into this design. Conceptually speaking, this is easily my favorite bay of Beyblade X from 2024, and again, maybe just so far in general. In terms of the physical design, I think it is really good. It's definitely a higher tier one. Maybe not number 1, which would be Aero Pegasus. Maybe not even top 5. Probably top 10 at least, though. But it still looks really good. And again, the concept behind this thing, I think, is just great. Really, really nice bay. And again, my favorite bay thus far for Beyblade X, I would say, conceptually. And again, pair that with a really good design, so yeah, it's my favorite bay. And unlike Drawn Buster, I feel like it does have a more unique identity to it, so I do prefer this a little bit. Anyway, that's about it for this video, so there you go. It's everything from 2024 ranked, at least the main stuff. Again, remake video and also the Hasbro variant video. Those will be probably in the distant future, but hopefully at some point. But anyways, that's all for this video. We'll do a 2025 ranking, likely in like January, maybe February of 2026. So anyways, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.